do the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a roll call.
Mayor Hassler.
Here.
Alderman Grimminger.
Here.
Alderman Mooney.
Here.
Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Hook. Alderman Stuckey.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Rozika.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. I have to have a motion for the approval of the new agenda. Did you all get a copy of the new agenda?
Yeah.
So
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Brings us on down. Is there any, that's it. Is there any, our city administrators report?
I think there has to be a city administrator.
I know that, we got that. I'm saying you're up. There'll be a little bit of explanation with your report. His report's pretty thick, so.
All right, the
Mark
first
will
two
talk.
items on the agenda have been kind of generally discussed from time to time here, and others have discussed road improvements. So I've included in your packet an excerpt from the property maintenance code that authorizes the city to require people to bring their buildings, houses and other commercial buildings into compliance with those maintenance standards. You can read it for yourself. The question for consideration, and not discussion tonight, because we're probably going to do these things at a work session later, is whether we should become more diligent in enforcing that provision of the code. Every time a Board of Aldermen council adopts the building code, they adopt these massive documents with no knowledge of the specifics, because nobody reads every page of the code except weird people like me. And and sometimes there are things in there that you just don't want to do. And so we went through the building code when we adopted it, and we just took out some things because we didn't think they were appropriate for St. Genevieve. We had a committee that reviewed it. This board was advised of their recommendation, and so we didn't adopt the building code kind of in total. We did some local amendments, and that's common. We really didn't review the property maintenance code, but this provision now has come to our attention because it seemed to be more and more homes in the community that just aren't homeowners, whether they're landlords or owner-occupied, that just aren't taking care of things. The problem is, once we start for everybody, and we continue to do it, and it's going to be somewhat controversial. So I'd like for you to just consider the implications of that without discussing it tonight, but also consider that if we don't do it, then we should consider doing a local amendment and removing that provision from the code. Not every city or every unit of local government that adopts the building codes adopts the property maintenance code. It's mandatory. Nor are you obligated to keep every section that's in the code. So that's the thought process here. Either we should administer it fairly and consistently over time, or if we don't want to do that, then we probably ought to just take it out.
No, I'd like to see it enforced.
Okay.
That's just me speaking, but
Well,
not to the point of making, I know it can cause hardships on people to a degree, but if you look at the long-range effects of it, maintaining property really helps everybody, because it helps property values. I mean, there's way more listed good things about taking care of property than there is just letting stuff decay and fall apart. So.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It's, I was just telling Martin before we got started, it's not technically on the agenda. He's just giving you an update as far as the city administrator's report. So, not saying I disagree with anything you said or whatever, but that's really a discussion for a work session or another meeting.
Yeah.
As well as the other thing is just because it's not on the agenda, people don't know you're going to be talking about that tonight.
Yeah, and it's just something that's out there. We need to talk about it, and we need to do a work session because it's gonna be it's gonna be
Oh, people get
controversial.
upset.
Right, but, and that's where I just wanted to get it out there, and what the last thing we wanna do is make it hard on anybody, but it's out there, and we will have we'll do a work session on
When
it.
you say it's controversial, is that because there's a lot of opinion that could go into what's acceptable and what's not?
It's a financial hardship, maybe.
Could be a financial hardship, and, there again, let's do a work session on it, so we're all on the same page, or either way, we're gonna make a decision on that, so.
Okay, the other topic that's greatly discussed that we've done some work on that I've included in your handout is, instead of just kind of doing a little road work here and a little road work there as the money is available at mid-year based on our general revenue fund and our bridge and road tax fund, there was some consideration of financing major road improvements through a bond issue. We asked Joy Howard, who was the financial consultant on our prior issues, to run some numbers just to give you an idea of what it would mean for, and she did $1 million and $8 million. If you kind of split the difference and interpolate it, if we wanted to think about $4 million, you can see what the impact is. It won't be exact because it doesn't work that way, but the larger the bond issue, the more dollars you have to cover the fixed cost. And the fixed costs don't go down because the bond issue is smaller. So the figures just never work out as a multiple of each other. But it's about right. It's about that. The mayor and I have considered, how much we could get done for $4 million. It's basically a consider it. We've looked at our roads. We've rated them. You kind of know, but there's more to it than just fixing the roads based on the condition of the road. The priority system might also include how much traffic it gets, what kind of traffic it gets. A subdivision road doesn't get any commercial traffic, but the person who lives on a subdivision road is going to be spending the same dollar that the person who lives on a thoroughfare spends, and they get consideration. So we have to talk about all that,
Right,
and decide how we want to divide up the pie if we decide to pursue it. But we need to make that decision first. Yes, we want to look into it, and then we can start talking about the nitty-gritty. If you decide that, well, I don't want to put this burden on the community. This is a general this is a property tax, and then that's fine. We'll just keep doing what we're doing.
So, question is this, because this is my first go-around with something like this, is this something that then gets put to the voters?
Yes.
And they
Yes.
say yes or
Yes.
no?
Yes.
So your decision will be, do we put it to
Do
a
we
vote?
put it on the ballot? Okay.
And my advice is, you got to do a lot more than that. You have to make a decision as to what's going to be done. You need to communicate that to the voters. If
So
you
it
approve
be
that,
explained so
these
everybody
roads are
understands.
going to get fixed.
Right.
And we need to have public hearings to receive
Right.
input from the citizens and then have a vote.
What's our tax rate? What would an average $100,000 home, what would their annual taxes be?
And then she have that expressed as
the-
per thousand.
It'd be the increase would, but what today would?
Oh, it'd be on top of the, wait, it's 7, I got it at my desk. Can we go get it?
No.
well, there again, that's another, we'll do a work session and talk about that. We don't want to, we can get all that information, but what I don't want to do is, I want to take it out. This is the first time you guys are seeing what was on my mind, and it's your decision, and what I'm not going to do is push something down somebody's throat that don't want it, and, I know it's going to be difficult, but there again, we got, that's another where we got to talk about it and do what's best.
And the people have to feel like it's a good value.
Right, absolutely,
So,
absolutely,
yeah.
so.
Pam's reminding me that if we're going to put it on, the April ballot, which is the ballot it would go on, it would have to be certified by January, so we'd have to make the decision, get bond counsel working on the ballot language.
Start the process, huh?
Yeah,
And I don't see that's something we have to be in a rush to do, you know.
well, we missed that election, then,
August, can you have a special election? Like, isn't there election in August that you can do?
Yes.
And then the next one would be the November.
But August, is August a normal election or be special? We'd have to pay for
It
it.
would cost us.
Yeah, it would cost you more.
Any would cost, but a special one would cost more because you're not splitting it with the school
School.
board.
whoever ambulance district, whoever's doing an issue. Okay,
Any more questions before we move off of that?
well, can't have too many.
Not too many. Bob's got some, but we're not gonna let him. Don't worry. I just,
General questions.
Simple terms, $150,000 home, the $8 million bond issue, what's their increase?
She has on that list an increase per thousand.
$23 a month.
$23 a month. So then times 12 months,
Right.
so it's up to $300. Right?
you guys have everything that I've looked at, and that's what I wanted to do tonight. So I didn't know how to get it to you. They said, Martin said, we talked to you, this is the best way I thought. It's out there, guys. You look at it, we'll discuss it, and that's just, I think, the best way to tackle that. Thank you.
Okay, there's been some discussion about the condition of the walking path in the park. I asked Jokers as kind of a favor to give me a budget figure for removing it and replacing it with a 5-foot wide asphalt path. They're looking at that since it's removed, the removal, to kind of want to give that some thought. So I will be reporting that out as soon as they get it to me. All pumps went south, so the pump that was designated for us ended up going somewhere, but they found a better deal, same year, fewer hours, and they're going to offer to us at the same price. So we're better off as a consequence of that. It's going to take longer than I anticipated. Jour de Fête, when the mayor attended a Jour de Fête meeting, and they were talking about, I think I reported this at our last meeting, maybe, the insurance problems, the cost. So I did what I said I was going to do. I checked with the city attorney. I checked with Missouri Public Risk, the company that insures us, and there really any way the city can cover Jour de Fête's liability for their event on their property. We can't extend sovereign immunity to them. We can't we can't add them to our policy. So we'd like to help them, but there's really nothing we can do.
What about the part of their event that occurs on City Street?
Well, I think we're already covered, absent negligence, for that event. Either, I don't think this special statutory immunity necessarily applies unless we put up signs and do all the things that the statute requires. But I think, and Mark can correct me if he'd like, we do benefit from sovereign immunity, and we're not liable for ordinary acts unless we didn't mitigate a dangerous condition.
Yeah, so the question presented is whether or not somehow we can use our umbrella coverage or immunity to assist them in their risk. And the short answer is we can't. We can limit our liability by doing different things, but they're a separate corporation. The only way it would work is if we took it over and we did it as the city event, and they didn't have a separate corporation or a separate entity involved. And that because then it's our event and we have certain immunities because we're a city. But with a different organization, as with any of these organizations that do fairs and festivals, they have their own potential liability for their own acts as an independent party, and we can't envelop them under our umbrella of sovereign immunity or our insurance coverage, just a separate
And
fund.
that's because they have things on their property down there.
They're a private, not-for-profit corporation that owns property when they conduct events on their property.
If they,
It's not really the real estate issue. I mean, that's one of the factors, but if they're having their event on our property, it still doesn't extend liability protection from them on our property. It may lessen their risk because we have certain obligations because of our property, but they still have responsibilities to their invitees and our property for their event. So there's really no way we can help them out because we're separate.
Okay, and the final thing worth noting is that Eric has got the information together on the renovations to this building that we've discussed to accommodate the Supreme Court rule on the court layout and the revision we were going to do up here to improve our security at the front. He said he'd like to do it at a work session. He didn't want to do it at this work session for two reasons. One, he had another obligation, but he didn't want a work session before the meeting to feel constrained by the time of the meeting for the start. Although I don't know how long it's going to take to go over it. So do you want to have a work session after our next regular meeting to discuss that, or do you want to schedule a special meeting for a work session?
After the meeting's fine with me.
After the meeting? Okay. I'll schedule.
Can we discuss some of those other things too, at that work?
Yes. I'll include those things on the list of things to be discussed. All right. So plan on staying later 2 weeks from now. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Martin. Sandra?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. I got one.
I try to load you down with paper and everything.
I got one. I know that.
Martin, I know you already.
I gave you mine.
Give him back. Here we go.
Thank you.
You mark one.
Okay, so I wasn't at the last meeting that you had because I was at the governor's conference for tourism directors, which was a good conference. But on that report, I mentioned that in the October issue of Where magazine, St. Genevieve was going to be featured on the cover and also on the inside. So I wanted to make sure that the aldermen all had copies of that.
Where magazine?
So Where magazine would be if you went to a hotel in the metro St. Louis area, including St. Charles and other points, this magazine would be in your hotel room. The concierge would have it if you went down to ask them about, hey, what are the things to do around here? It comes out on a monthly basis, so it's in those hotel rooms for a full month. And it's also distributed in other areas in the St. Louis metro region, like large corporations and that kind of thing. So for someone who travels, they would be familiar with this, because any major city that you go to, there's going to be a Where magazine in the major hotels in that city. If you go to Washington, D.C. or Chicago or Kansas City, they all have their own version. So it always tells you what are the things to do in that area. Typically, this magazine would focus on items in the St. Louis area, but as you can see on page 13, they have a special article about if you've already seen and done all the things that are cool to do in St. Louis, the brewery, the Forest Park, the zoo, all those things. Here's some great places to do a day trip and consider getting out of St. Louis. So that's the article that you see, and to the left of that you see a full page photo. They sent a photographer down here and did that full page photo. The photo on the front was submitted by us to the magazine for consideration, along with about half a dozen other vertical-oriented photos. And of course, you will recognize those are two of our local members of the militia, Jack and Mickey Ketting, who dress up frequently for our events, and they're located inside the trading post of the Felix Valley State Historic Site. So it's really good recognition for us. It's good exposure for us to a traveler at a time of the year when, of course, with all the things that we have to see and do here in the fall, it's a good time for us. I just wanted you to have your own copy. Of course, Jack and Mickey, I gave them several copies because, that whole rule about 5 copies for your mother, right? So I just wanted to let you know, just real briefly, in the month of September, we welcomed 2,703 guests through the doors of the Welcome Center, the best year in the last 5 years, and it came on the heels of a big increase from September 2015 to 2016 that had been quite a bit higher in September, so I wasn't sure that we would even get close to matching last year's September. We edged it out just a little bit. We're continuing to see an increase in foot traffic, not just on weekends, not just for our festivals, but ever so slowly we're getting that increase during the middle of the week. Some of our lodging properties are experiencing midweek travelers. These are typically going to be baby boomers with disposable income, time on their hands, kids are out of the house, and they're hitting the road. So obviously our message is getting across because they're including St. Genevieve in their to-do list. So we're grateful for that. And then you have on the back, you have a listing of sort of some of the key budget line items that we track and talk about with tour revenue and expenses, our department marketing expenses, and through the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, there's a lot more line items in the department than just those few, but wanted you to have that for the way the fiscal year ended up. And then lastly, if you haven't already made your plans for the weekend, this is going to be a very, very busy weekend. Of course, one of our signature events happens this weekend. That is the St. Genevieve Rural Heritage Day. This is their 9th annual, and this is a festival that has really grown in reputation and brings not only a lot of our local people from the city and county into St. Genevieve, but it also brings a lot of people here from other areas because it's very much, a hometown type, small town festival celebrating all the special things that there are about growing up in a rural community and really honoring some of our our forefathers and foremothers who did everything the hard way, did it all by hand, and still managed to, have dinner on the table in the evening and have a good quality of life. So that's happening this weekend. It's also the 4th Friday Art Walk tomorrow night, sponsored by the Downtown Renewal. And there are several things going on with that, a pet contest, a pet parade, a pumpkin carving contest that the museum is sponsoring, and this weekend there's also a 4-day event being hosted at the fairgrounds that's a spooky Halloween, and so they're having a haunted house in the evening, they're having lawnmower races over the weekend, so lots to see and do. If you're bored this weekend, it's only yourself you have to blame. So just wanted to point out some of those yes.
Do they plan to have the Rural Heritage event on the same weekend every year?
It's always the 4th Saturday.
As is the Kinswick Apple Butter Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's this weekend too.
It
Yes.
occurred to me last year they were competing for people driving down 55. If you did it on a weekend before or after, you wouldn't be competing with that. That's not my decision, not your decision.
You can tell.
I'll let the Lions Club know.
We also, on Saturday at the high school, we're hosting our 10th annual St. Genevieve Marching Festival. Marching band competition from area schools around. We've drawn schools from Tennessee and
how many?
We have 17 bands competing this year. It's about 2,000 kids total in those 17 bands.
And what is the time of this event?
The first band plays at 2, and the last band plays at, I think, 8:30.
Which is also, during the evening, the spirit reunion is happening just over the hill in the cemetery, too.
Serenaded by the marching band.
Yes.
That's right.
yes. They appreciate that.
Swear, a sweet serenade.
So, yeah, there's a lot happening, and it is a busy weekend, and, you know, so drive carefully and have a smile for everyone.
Where are they doing the museum having their?
They're actually going to have the awards and the showing in the former Clip Joint, which is right next to where the new museum is going to be. Yeah. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eric had an unavoidable conflict, so he gave you a written report, but he's not here. So.
We got Ryan here. Let's bring Ryan up.
Let's grill him.
Come on.
All right, do my best. As you can tell, Chief Bennett's not here tonight, so I'm going to be hopefully a sufficient replacement in his absence. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Ryan McClare. I'm the sergeant in our department. Just a few of the highlights on the report here. We did receive a resignation last week from an officer. He was a probationary officer. No reason other than he was just new into law enforcement and decided that the job just wasn't for him. And sometimes whenever you do that, you have to experience the job firsthand to know whether or not you're capable of doing it. That's pretty much it with that. Officer Cusinelli is still doing training with the K-9, still in Michigan. He, I believe, is due to be completed with his training next Friday, the 3rd. We'll have him back on the road here, first shift, I believe it's November 8th. So we'll have he's excited about the dog. He said he's training very well. The dog's going to be a very good asset to our department whenever he gets there.
Mario.
Yes.
Mario's
his name, yes. He is a...
We went over Cusinelli and Mario.
Yes. It matches.
It does.
It matches, right. Does anyone have any questions on anything on the agenda?
What's the shot fired? Is that you guys or somebody else?
Well, there's an ordinance in town against any kind of projectile weapon, whether it be with an arrow, with a gun, anything projectile. I don't know the specifics behind the call. It wasn't me that received it. But anytime anybody hears anything resembling a shot fired, it could be a car backfiring, it could be a loud bang. We get it could be anything like that. You know, we do try to investigate those to the best of our ability. On
Are BB guns, paintball guns, all that stuff included in that?
No, they are not in there. Paintball or BB guns. No, I believe that's fine too, as long as it's not being misused. Right, or breaking anything. But it's mainly for like bows and arrows and firearms.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I saw that.
If we've had any incidents since we put the UTVs on the streets?
Actually, no. We've had a pretty good response from the citizens on that. We've issued a few of the permits for them. We, to my knowledge, have not issued not one citation related to that. And every time I pass one on the road, they're driving pretty responsibly. It seems like our, I would say our upper 20s community, 30s, 40s and above, those are the ones that you normally see operating them on the road.
Good.
There's probably anyone younger than 21 can't afford those UTVs anyway.
I was thinking that.
But-
They keep getting bigger and fancier.
Yes, there's quite a price tag on them as well.
I've seen many of them on the road there, and they all drive very responsibly.
Yeah,
So that is,
I'm very impressed with it actually.
so far.
Has there been any change in scooter driving behavior that you've noticed since the scooter ordinances have?
I've been seeing a decrease in multiple passenger ones where they're actually riding passengers. You still don't see a lot of the helmets being utilized, but they don't have to be whenever they're under a certain age, or over a certain age. So we haven't really had any incidents.
Have we stopped anyone that we thought was underage?
That I would have to check into, I don't know. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to put anything on this traffic counter deal, or do we want to?
That was requested by, I think, Alderman Donovan.
I asked about it. I saw it there on Chadwell and both ends there by the railroad tracking up by 61. I inquired with Gary about it, you know, and so I'd like to find out what kind of numbers you got. That's a lot. That's a lot of
I
cars.
suggested where it come from is we had a problem with the crossing down there with the railroad, and I think it was a meeting with Bob that somebody suggested putting a counter there, so we put one up there on Chadwell, see how much traffic's coming in and out of there too, so I think there are counters, so. I knew there was a lot of traffic, but it's substantial. I don't know what it's gonna help us or if it's gonna help us, but. So. There's the information on it, so there'll be more details to come. Any committee reports?
Yeah, I was there with you at the Heritage Commission meeting, and Martin, and the commission approved the plans for the museum down here. Beautiful plans, going to be a beautiful project, and was very well presented. And the committee loved it because there was a lot of detail in the plans, and overall it's just it's going to be a really nice asset to the city. So.
Joe, anything from planning and zoning?
Next week.
Next week. What about last week? Oh, we already.
On St. Gen TV, we talked about maybe enhancing the council chambers, to maybe put a couple more cameras in here for better viewing for the people that have the cable TV, or get on the St. Gen TV website. I didn't make the last meeting, so I watched it on TV.
Getting additional microphones.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that.
Here you have Buck's not going to be nearly as clear because he's close to a microphone.
Well, we discussed that, yeah, and we talked about possibly having the ones that drop down from the ceiling, and that's how actually we started. I don't know, Pam, you remember that we had the wires coming out of the ceiling with the little microphones. But, yeah, and the biggest thing that is an issue is paper rustling. So I don't know, it's hard to.
I thought we were going to do away with all this paper and have the tablets. Working on it? Okay.
Tablets would be pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, you remember anything else, Martin? You were there for part of it anyway. Yeah.
I think major things that concern. Some of the stuff we talked about, I had no clue what they were talking about.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know. It's all tech stuff.
Some kind of cable and this and that.
Yeah. We got some good folks down there that are helping keep that going. You know, Don and Charlie. Yeah, it's really good. So you guys need to get on there.
The municipal band board met. We're getting ready to prepare for the Christmas concert. The choir, municipal choir, if anybody's interested in performing with the choir, they should contact Michelle Jokerst.
Joe Prince, man.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
Contact Michelle Jokerst up at the high school. She's the choir teacher at St. Gen, and she does the choir portion of that. So I think there was going to be an ad in the paper about that as well. So practice starts next week.
Good deal.
All right. So we'll move on. We have nobody here for public comments, so.
Before they do the consent, here's the closed session minutes.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Takes us to old business. Bill number 4197. This will be the second reading. Ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Jokers Incorporated to allow an overlay at LaFleur Street in the amount not to exceed $63.20 per ton.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Need a roll call vote?
Alderman Grimminger?
Yes.
Alderman Mooney?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Rozika?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4197 now becomes ordinance 4130.
Thank you. Second reading on bill number 4198, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending Chapter 500, Building and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building Code, Section 500-110, Codes A1, Section 500-110, Codes B1, Section 500-190, Construction Permits, A Section 500-190, Construction Permits, G, and the St. Genevieve Municipal Code as set forth below.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Alderman Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Rozika?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderman Mooney?
Yes.
Alderman Grimminger?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4198 now becomes ordinance 4131.
Thank you. Takes us to new business. Bill number 4199, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2018 budget relating to the general fund, number 10, department number 11, legislative.
This is creating that building maintenance fund from the FIBA revenues.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Bill number 4200, an ordinance calling for the general election of officers of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri to be held April 3rd, 2018, and providing notice to the general public.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Takes us to other business. Any other business? Any communication? Joe, anything? You don't want this meeting to end, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's over with.